Flight attendant denies black talented quadruplets girls first class, unaware their father owns the airline. The luxurious first-class cabin of Flight 1619 buzzed with the usual pre-takeoff energy. Passengers settled into plush leather seats, stowing designer luggage and sipping complimentary champagne. But in row 3, an entirely different scene was unfolding. 4 young black women, identical in every way, found themselves at the center of a rapidly escalating confrontation. "I've explained this 3 times already," the flight attendant hissed, her patience clearly wearing thin. "These seats are reserved for our first-class passengers. You need to move to the economy. Now." One of the quadruplets, her voice steady but laced with frustration, replied, "And we've shown you our tickets 3 times. We belong here." The flight attendant's eyes narrowed. "Listen, I don't know how you got these tickets, but there's clearly been a mistake. First class is not 4-. She caught herself, but the implication hung heavy in the air. Another sister spoke up, her tone sharp. "Not for what? Go ahead, finish that sentence." Other passengers began to take notice. Some averted their eyes, suddenly finding their safety pamphlets fascinating. Others watched with a mix of discomfort and morbid curiosity. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from in the comment section, and if you are a lover of justice and inspirational stories, don't forget to like, comment, and hit the subscribe button for more of these gripping stories. The quadruplets exchanged glances, a lifetime of silent communication passing between them in an instant. They had encountered prejudice before, but never so blatantly, never in a space they had rightfully paid to occupy. As the argument intensified, none of the participants noticed the elderly black woman in row 5 discreetly pulling out her phone, her trembling fingers pressing record. Nor did they see the man in the last row of first class, his face a mask of controlled fury, reaching for the call button. In that moment, on that plane, a powder keg of racial tension, privilege, and justice was about to explode. And the fallout would reverberate far beyond the confines of Flight 1619. Brief overview: this incident on a major airline flight in 2025 sparked a national conversation about racial profiling and discrimination in the aviation industry. Thesis statement: the story of these talented quadruplets and their confrontation with systemic racism will reveal the ongoing struggles faced by people of color in America, even in spaces where they rightfully belong. As tensions rise in the first-class cabin, what unseen forces are at play that could turn this confrontation into a watershed moment for racial justice in America? To understand the gravity of what transpired on Flight 1619, we must first introduce the remarkable young women at the center of this story. Ava, Bella, Chloe, and Daphne Johnson were born on a crisp autumn morning in 2005 to Michael and Sarah Johnson. From the moment they entered the world, it was clear these girls were extraordinary. Not just because they were identical quadruplets, a rarity in itself, but because of the innate musical talent they possessed. By age 3, the girls were already showing an uncanny ability to recognize and reproduce complex melodies. At 5, they began formal violin lessons. By 10, they were performing in Carnegie Hall. Now, at 20, they are widely regarded as prodigies, their harmonies so perfectly synchronized it's as if they share a single musical soul. Ava, the eldest by 2 minutes, is known for her fierce determination and leadership. She's often the spokesperson for the group, her eloquence and poise belying her young age. Bella, the second-born, is the technical perfectionist, spending hours honing her craft until every note is flawless. Chloe, third in line, is the creative force, often composing original pieces that showcase the unique bond between the sisters. Daphne, the youngest, is the empath of the group, her playing so emotionally charged it's been known to move audiences to tears. Their talents extend beyond music. All 4 maintain perfect GPAs at Juilliard, are fluent in 5 languages, and dedicate much of their free time to teaching music to underprivileged youth in their community. They've used their platform to advocate for racial equality and arts education, becoming role models for young black girls across the nation. It's the summer of 2025, and the Johnson sisters are boarding a flight from New York to Los Angeles. They're en route to the prestigious Harmony International competition, where they're favored to win. The prize, a world tour and a recording contract with a major label. For the Johnsons, this isn't just about music, it's an opportunity to further their mission of inspiring and uplifting their community. To fully grasp the context of this incident, we must look back at the troubling history of racial discrimination in air travel. In the 1960s, airports in many parts of the United States were still segregated, with separate waiting areas, restaurants, and bathrooms for black passengers. Even after legal segregation ended, subtle and not-so-subtle forms of discrimination persisted. In the decades that followed, numerous incidents of racial profiling and discrimination made headlines. Black passengers reported being singled out for additional security screenings, removed from flights for spurious reasons, or denied upgrades and services freely offered to white passengers. Despite progress, the specter of racism continued to haunt the friendly skies. At the heart of this story is Michael Johnson, father of the Quadruplets and a self-made billionaire. Born in 1975 to working-class parents in Detroit, Michael's journey to success was anything but easy. At 18, Michael took a job as a baggage handler at Detroit Metropolitan Wayne County Airport. It was grueling work, but Michael saw it as an opportunity to learn the airline industry from the ground up. Despite his dedication and exemplary performance, he frequently encountered racism. He was passed over for promotions, subjected to random security checks, and often heard colleagues using racial slurs when they thought he wasn't listening. Rather than break his spirit, these experiences fueled Michael's determination. He worked days as a baggage handler and nights studying business and aviation management. By 28, he had worked his way up to a management position. At 35, he took a risk and started his own regional airline, focusing on underserved routes and communities. Michael's airline, initially mocked by industry insiders, grew rapidly. His commitment to diversity, excellent customer service, and innovative routes set his company apart. By 45, Michael had expanded internationally and acquired several larger airlines. Today, at 50, he owns one of the largest airline conglomerates in the world. Throughout his journey, Michael never forgot the sting of discrimination he faced. He implemented robust diversity and inclusion programs, created scholarships for minority students interested in aviation, and made it his mission to transform the industry from within. However, as the incident with his daughters would prove, there was still much work to be done. Seated in row 5 of the first-class cabin is 72-year-old Evelyn Thompson. A retired civil rights attorney, Mrs. Thompson had spent her career fighting against racial injustice. As she witnesses the confrontation unfolding before her, she's transported back to her own experiences of discrimination decades earlier. With hands shaking partly from age and partly from indignation, Mrs. Thompson retrieves her phone and begins recording. She knows all too well how often these incidents go undocumented, leaving victims without recourse. Not this time, she thinks to herself. Not these girls. As the argument escalates, Mrs. Thompson continues filming, capturing every word, every microaggression, every flicker of disdain on the flight attendant's face. Little does she know that her quick thinking will provide crucial evidence in the storm that's about to break. How will this incident impact the Johnson Quadruplets' futures and the airline industry as a whole? As the tension builds in the first-class cabin, what unseen forces are converging to turn this confrontation into a pivotal moment in the ongoing struggle for racial equality in America? As the tension in the first-class cabin reaches a boiling point, the confrontation between the Johnson Quadruplets and the flight attendant takes a dramatic turn. The flight attendant, her face flushed with frustration, raises her voice, drawing the attention of nearby passengers. "Ladies, I've been more than patient. If you don't move to economy immediately, I'll have no choice but to call the captain and have you removed from the flight." Chloe, typically the calmest of the four, feels her composure slipping. "This is blatant discrimination," she exclaims, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. "You wouldn't be treating us this way if we were white." The accusation hangs in the air, heavy and undeniable. Other passengers shift uncomfortably in their seats, some averting their eyes while others watch with growing concern. An elderly white couple seated across the aisle exchange whispers. The woman leans towards her husband, her voice barely audible. Harold, this doesn't seem right. Those girls have tickets. Why are they being treated this way? Harold, his brow furrowed, nods in agreement. It's shameful, he mutters. Someone should say something. Despite the escalating situation, the Johnson sisters maintain a remarkable level of composure. Years of performing under pressure have taught them to control their emotions, even in the face of injustice. Ava, ever the leader, takes a deep breath before addressing the flight attendant. Her voice is calm but firm. Ma'am, we understand you're doing your job, but we need you to understand that we have every right to be here. We've shown you our tickets multiple times. We're not moving to economy because these are our assigned seats. Bella chimes in, her tone measured but with an edge of steel. We're not trying to cause trouble, but we won't be bullied or discriminated against. If you have an issue with our presence here, we suggest you escalate this to your superiors. Daphne, the most empathetic of the four, tries a different approach. We're on our way to an important competition, she explains, her voice gentle. We've been preparing for months. Please, can't we resolve this without further conflict? Their united front and articulate responses seem to give the flight attendant pause, but only momentarily. Realizing she's losing control of the situation, the flight attendant signals to her colleague. Janet, get the senior flight attendant. And inform the captain we have a situation. Within minutes, the senior flight attendant, a middle-aged man named Robert, arrives on the scene. He listens to his colleague's hurried explanation, his expression growing increasingly concerned. Ladies, Robert addresses the quadruplets, I understand there's been some confusion about your seating arrangements. Perhaps we can dash. He's interrupted by the arrival of the captain, a tall, imposing figure in his crisp uniform. The captain surveys the scene, his eyes moving from the agitated flight attendants to the four young black women seated in first class. What seems to be the problem here? The captain asks, his voice carrying the weight of authority. Before anyone can respond, a new voice enters the fray. From the last row of first class, a man rises. He's been watching the entire confrontation unfold, his anger building with each passing moment. As he approaches the group, the flight attendants instinctively step back. Is there a problem here? The man asks, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of barely contained fury. These are my daughters, and I can assure you they belong in first class. The original flight attendant, her voice now tinged with uncertainty, asks, and who are you, sir? The man straightens to his full height, his gaze unwavering. I'm Michael Johnson, the owner of this airline. A collective gasp ripples through the first-class cabin. The flight attendants pale visibly, the gravity of their mistake dawning on them. Michael continues, his voice low but intense. Now, I'd like a full explanation of why my daughters are being harassed and discriminated against on my own airline. The captain, recognizing Michael immediately, stammers, Mr. Johnson, sir, I had no idea. We'll get to the bottom of this immediately. As the reality of the situation sinks in, Mrs. Thompson in row 5 allows herself a small smile of satisfaction, her phone still recording every moment of this extraordinary turn of events. The Johnson quadruplets exchange glances, a mix of relief and vindication passing between them. They've stood their ground, maintained their dignity, and now watch as the tables turn dramatically. How will the flight crew react to this shocking revelation, and what immediate consequences will they face? As the power dynamics shift so abruptly, how will this incident reshape the conversation about racial profiling in the airline industry and beyond? The revelation of Michael Johnson's identity sends shockwaves through the aircraft, setting in motion a series of events that will reverberate far beyond Flight 1619. As the reality of the situation sinks in, the first-class cabin falls into a stunned silence. The flight attendant who initiated the confrontation, now identified as Sarah Miller, stands frozen, her face a mask of horror and embarrassment. Michael Johnson, his voice low but commanding, addresses the captain. I want Ms. Miller removed from this flight immediately. She'll be suspended pending a full investigation. The captain nods, visibly shaken. Of course, Mr. Johnson. I'll make the necessary arrangements. As Ms. Miller is escorted off the plane, tears streaming down her face, Michael turns to his daughters. Are you girls okay? He asks, his tone softening with concern. Ava, speaking for her sisters, responds, We're fine, Dad. Just shaken. Michael nods, then addresses the remaining crew and passengers. I apologize for this disturbance. This incident is not representative of the values of our airline. Everyone on this flight will be receiving full refunds and vouchers for future travel. A murmur of approval ripples through the cabin, but the atmosphere remains tense. Mrs. Thompson, still clutching her phone, approaches Michael. Mr. Johnson, she says, I recorded the entire incident. If you need it for your investigation, I'd be happy to provide it. Michael thanks her warmly, recognizing the importance of having concrete evidence. As the flight prepares for takeoff, now significantly delayed, the airline's PR team springs into action. By the time Flight 1619 lands in Los Angeles, a public apology has been issued, condemning the incident and promising a thorough investigation and overhaul of company policies. This is a clear case of racial profiling, argues one commentator. These young women were targeted solely because of the color of their skin. But isn't it standard procedure to verify tickets? Another counter. The flight attendant was just doing her job. Doing her job, a third voice chimes in. She was shown the tickets multiple times. At what point does doing your job become harassment? Civil rights leaders call for boycotts of the airline, while others praise Michael Johnson's swift response. The incident becomes a flashpoint in the ongoing national conversation about race and privilege in America. Despite Michael's majority ownership of the airline, the Johnson family decides to file a discrimination lawsuit. In a press conference, Michael explains their decision. This isn't about money. It's about accountability and setting a precedent. No one should face discrimination on our airlines or anywhere else. By pursuing legal action, we hope to send a clear message that these incidents will not be tolerated, regardless of who owns the company. The lawsuit names not only the airline but also Ms. Miller personally, citing emotional distress and violation of civil rights. Legal experts predict it could be a landmark case in aviation law and civil rights jurisprudence. The incident serves as a wake-up call for the entire airline industry. Airlines across the globe begin reviewing and overhauling their training programs and policies. Michael Johnson takes the lead, announcing a comprehensive new diversity and inclusion initiative for his airline. Mandatory implicit bias training for all employees, from baggage handlers to executives. The creation of a passenger advocacy board comprised of diverse members from various communities. A zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, with clear consequences for violations. Increased recruitment efforts in underrepresented communities. The establishment of a scholarship fund for minority students pursuing careers in aviation. Other airlines quickly follow suit, not wanting to be seen as lagging behind on this crucial issue. The incident became a case study in business schools, examining both the risks of unchecked bias and the importance of swift, decisive leadership in crisis situations. Despite the traumatic start to their trip, the Johnson Quadruplets decide to proceed with their performance at the Harmony International competition in Los Angeles. Their father offers to postpone, but the sisters are adamant. We won't let this incident define us or derail our dreams, Ava declares in a brief statement to the press gathered outside their hotel. On the night of the competition, the sisters take the stage amidst unprecedented media attention. The audience falls silent as they raise their violins in perfect unison. What follows is a performance of such raw emotion and technical brilliance that it leaves the audience breathless. Their rendition of Vivaldi's Four Seasons is infused with a depth of feeling that speaks to their recent experience, the tension of summer, the melancholy of autumn, the chill of winter, and finally, the hope and renewal of spring. As the final notes fade away, there's a moment of stunned silence before the auditorium erupts in a standing ovation. Tears stream down the faces of audience members and judges alike. It's clear to everyone present that they've witnessed not just a musical performance, but a powerful statement of resilience and triumph over adversity. To no one's surprise, the Johnson Quadruplets are awarded first place. As they accept their trophy, Bella speaks for the group. This victory is not just for us. It's for every person who has ever faced discrimination and chose to stand tall. It's for every little girl who's been told she doesn't belong. We belong. You belong. Let the music of justice and equality play on. The audience erupts in cheers once more, the applause lasting long after the sisters have left the stage. Will this incident lead to lasting change in the airline industry, or is it just another fleeting moment in the ongoing struggle for racial equality? As the Johnson Quadruplets rise from adversity to triumph, what lessons can be drawn about resilience, talent, and the power of standing up against injustice? As the dust settles on this extraordinary series of events, we're left to ponder the broader implications and the path forward. The incident on Flight 1619 serves as a stark reminder that discrimination can occur anywhere, even in spaces where we least expect it. It underscores the importance of vigilance and action from all members of society. To our viewers, we urge you to 1. Speak out. If you witness discrimination, don't remain silent. Your voice matters. Whether it's in your workplace, your community, or on public transportation, standing up against injustice can make a real difference. 2. Educate yourself. Take the time to learn about the experiences of marginalized communities. Read books, watch documentaries, and engage in conversations that challenge your perspectives. 3. Support diversity initiatives. Look for ways to support organizations and businesses that prioritize diversity and inclusion. This could mean patronizing minority-owned businesses, donating to civil rights organizations, or volunteering for community programs that promote equality. 4. Advocate for policy changes. Contact your local representatives and push for legislation that addresses systemic racism and discrimination. Support policies that promote equal opportunities in education, employment, and housing. 5. Examine your own biases. We all have unconscious biases. Take implicit bias tests, reflect on your own attitudes and behaviors, and commit to ongoing personal growth. 6. Amplify marginalized voices. Use your platforms, whether social media or personal networks, to share stories and perspectives from underrepresented groups. 7. Support arts and education. As the Johnson Quadruplets have shown, talent knows no color. Support programs that provide arts education and opportunities to underprivileged youth. Remember, change doesn't happen overnight, but every action, no matter how small, contributes to the larger movement towards equality. As we reflect on the events that unfolded on Flight 1619 and their aftermath, it's clear that we've made significant progress in the fight against racism and discrimination. The swift response from Michael Johnson, the public outcry, and the industry-wide changes implemented in the wake of this incident are all positive signs. However, we must not let this progress lull us into complacency. The very fact that this incident occurred in 2025, decades after the civil rights movement, shows that we still have a long way to go. Systemic racism and unconscious bias continue to permeate our society, often in subtle ways that can be easy to overlook if we're not directly affected. The Johnson Quadruplets story is both inspiring and sobering. Their talent, poise, and resilience in the face of discrimination are a testament to their character and the strength of their upbringing. But we must ask ourselves, how many other talented individuals have had their dreams deferred or denied because they lack the resources or connections to fight back against injustice? Moreover, we must consider the role of privilege in this story. While the outcome was ultimately positive, would it have been the same if Michael Johnson hadn't been the owner of the airline? How many similar incidents go unresolved or unnoticed because the victims don't have powerful advocates? These are uncomfortable questions, but they're questions we must continue to ask and address if we want to create a truly equitable society. The changes implemented in the airline industry in the wake of this incident are commendable, but they're just a starting point. We need to see similar commitments to diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism training across all sectors of society in our schools, our workplaces, our government institutions, and our communities. As we move forward, let's carry with us the lessons learned from Flight 1619. 1. Discrimination can happen anywhere, even in spaces we consider progressive or inclusive. 2. Speaking up against injustice is crucial, whether you're directly affected or a bystander. 3. Documentation of incidents can be powerful tools for change. 4. Leadership has a responsibility to set the tone and take swift action against discrimination. 5. Talent and determination can triumph over adversity, but we shouldn't require extraordinary achievements to deserve fair treatment. 6. Systemic change requires ongoing commitment and vigilance from all of us. The story of the Johnson Quadruplets is more than just a cautionary tale about racial profiling or a feel-good story of triumph over adversity. It's a call to action for all of us to play our part in creating a more just and equitable world. As we conclude this documentary, let's remember the haunting melody of the Quadruplets' performance, a performance that spoke of struggle, resilience, and hope. Let that be the soundtrack to our ongoing efforts to combat racism and discrimination in all its forms. The journey towards true equality is long and often difficult, but as the Johnson sisters have shown us, with talent, determination, and the courage to stand up for what's right, we can create harmony from discord and turn moments of injustice into catalysts for change. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Now, it's up to all of us to write the next chapter in the ongoing story of civil rights and human dignity. The flight towards equality continues. Will you be on board? Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more of this gripping story.